All right, folks. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mitch Cox. I'm the commissioner of the CCAA. I thank you for joining us. And for this, our sixth part of our presentation, our CCAA Wednesday afternoon speaker series. I am really excited to be introducing to you Alisha Valavanis. But before I do, just a couple of side notes before we start. Please make sure you keep yourself muted if possible. We do want to have your camera on, however, so that Alisha can see your smiling faces. And, obviously, if you have a question, we'll have a question and answer period at the end of this. But if you have one in the middle, something occurs to you, go ahead and throw it in the chat box or raise your hand or do whatever you need to do to get attention to yourself. This is a pretty loose arrangement here, just like our other ones. Finally, this is really important. Tomorrow's draft day in the WNBA. And so Alisha has a couple of big meetings coming up right after this. and we don't want to mess up the Storm and their draft strategy. So we're going to shut this down at 4:45 so that she can get off and do her meetings that are important. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Alisha Valavanis to you. Alisha was a member of the Chico State women's basketball team from 1995 to 1999. Over 20 years later, she is still among the top 10 in career three-pointers for the Wildcats. So how about that? After graduating, she served as an assistant coach for the Wildcats for 4 years, helping lead the team to 4 straight NCAA appearances. Her career continued after that. I'll let her tell you all of the stops in between and how she advanced to her current position as the general manager and CEO of your two-time defending WNBA champion Seattle Storm. So without any further ado, turn your mics on. Let's give a big warm CCA welcome to one of our own, Alisha Valavanis.
Thank you, Mitch. What's up, everybody? It's cool to be with you guys this afternoon. I've been looking forward to this. So this has been scheduled for a little while. So thanks for spending some time with me. I'll share a little bit about my kind of journey to Seattle. Certainly some highlights with the CCAA conference back in the day. It was a long time ago. Thanks, Mitch, for the reminder there, 20 years plus. But really would love to spend our time together with an open kind of Q&A, because I'd love to just kind of hear what you guys are thinking and anything that would be interesting to talk about from your end. So a little bit about my background. Actually born and raised in Indiana. So it's quite the Hoosier state there. No surprise, they throw you a ball before you can walk in Indiana. I have an identical twin. So we played a lot of basketball from the very beginning. And really coming from a family, I'm one of 6. So not only was basketball kind of at the center from the beginning for me, but so was team. So my very favorite topic to talk about is team. And really high performing teams has been kind of my passion and interest in my career, is talking about kind of what's happening on the court and on the fields, and also what's happening kind of in business and how analogous it is for high performing teams in sport to how high performing teams work in business. So, in terms of my journey, tons of hoops, found our way to Chico State. My twin is a point guard. I was a shooting guard. So really had a lot of fun playing together. Thoroughly enjoyed our collegiate experience. And it seems there are a bunch of student athletes on the call. So would love to hear from you guys. Realized, pretty early that there were so many incredible opportunities that came through that collegiate experience. And so when my college career was coming to an end, decided to stay on, kind of go from the court to the sideline, get into coaching, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I stayed on and got my master's at that point as well. So kind of through that process, I started to kind of evaluate the business of sports, both at the collegiate level and at the professional level, thinking about kind of what was next. And for me, I really wanted to make the move to the business side. A couple things were showing up for me. One, just loved the arena of sports as a business, but also just kind of starting to understand the power of sports and the platform to do good. And I mean, I think about each of you and your platforms, and really, we'll talk about the WNBA and the Seattle Storm specifically, but really wanted to understand at that point how sports could be used to drive positive social change. And that's really where there was a spark, and for me, passion to kind of see what could be next for me from a career path. So went to the Golden State Warriors for a year, loved it. I mean, they just run an incredible business there. Went to Cal, was working in development at Cal for 4 years. And then the Storm called. And the truth is, it wasn't like circled for me, the WNBA. It was just this incredible opportunity. I loved college sports, but for me, there was such alignment with the WNBA. And the reason I was so invested in college sports, really so much of that mission carried over for the WNBA. You're talking about opportunity for women in sports. As you guys know, our league is a league of Black women. There were so many things around the WNBA and the social justice work and using the platform of professional sports for change that just spoke to me. It was something I wanted to be a part of. I got to know the ownership group here and was just blown away. 3 women owning a professional team, totally committed to kind of bold ideas and also bold action to drive positive change. And so it was a dream job. I'm going into my 7th season. We've fortunately won a couple of championships in the last 3 years, which is fun. As you guys all know in sports, it's nice to cut the nets down. But really it's about the work off the court that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so I want to open it up. I'd love to talk with you all, hear your thoughts. But yeah, that's my story.
So Alisha, you make it kind of sound easy. You went from Chico State as a coach to UOP, and then you went to Cal, and then you went to the Warriors. How did that happen for you? I'm sure a lot of these student athletes are wondering, how do I make that step? It's not as easy as maybe it sounds. So what are some tips or secrets you might have?
Well, I think the first thing is there's not one track. And I think oftentimes it's kind of, where am I going and how do I get there? The reality is you're going to go a bunch of different directions, explore a ton of different ideas, have different opportunities. And it's just not like one ladder up. You know what I mean? We often think about it that way, like, what's your climb look like? But the truth is, I went from college coaching to a sharp pivot to like sales with the Golden State Warriors. I mean, my background was from an educational standpoint, was journalism, sports management, and I was in sales. So I guess I would say about the journey and the track, it's gonna go a million different ways. Really, for me, and what I would say the most important piece is that you're spending time doing something you're passionate about and with people you want to be with. You know, not every job's the perfect job. Not every job's going to be a quick, clip to the VP role, but it's your time. This is your time. And you get to decide where you spend your minutes. And so I just encourage you to think about really what fills you up, what you're passionate about, where you want to spend your time. And then a huge part of it is the team around you. I mean, you guys all know that already. So much of what makes a valuable and kind of rewarding experience is who you're sharing your time with. Thanks for the question, Mitch.
Feel free, whoever has a question, just to jump in. Let's see. Well, Jessica says she brought her Storm bauble for the show. So Jess, where is
I
it?
appreciate that. Who is it?
It's a swin. It's a little swin.
Awesome. Well, Cash, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So since I'm talking to you,
Yeah.
Can you just kind of talk a little bit about this week and how the draft process is and
Sure.
how you even have time to talk to us this week?
So the draft is obviously, it's such an exciting part of the start of the season for the WNBA. It happens right before, we finish up the NCAA tournaments and then right into the draft for the WNBA. And then immediately following the draft, we move into training camp. So it's a wonderful time for us. We're actually going into our 25th season as a league. Tons of momentum coming off of last year for the WNBA. So it's a really exciting time. I have an incredible team around me. And everybody's been working really hard. And of course, in the talent evaluation, thinking about kind of the moves that we're going to make. So it's an exciting week for sure.
How many people do you have out there in terms of scouting?
So a ton of our evaluation, no surprise, is right now virtual. But, of course, our entire coaching staff has a heavy lift on talent evaluation. But given circumstances, much of that has happened in the last year plus virtually.
Okay, we have a good mixture of coaches and student athletes on the call. So I know you've got questions. Don't be shy. Just holler on up. So the first one in the chat box, who is your March Madness team?
Who was yours, Allison? Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The tournament was just exceptional this year. Nice. Arizona was a lot of fun to watch here for the Storm because Adia Barnes played for the Seattle Storm, coached for the Seattle Storm, was a broadcaster here for us as well. So, but the tournament was great. Every game of the tournament, the women's tournament was exceptional.
Alisha, can you see that in the chat, or do I need to read that to you from?
Sure.
It says, what are some of the key aspects of being an athlete on a sports team that you took and transferred into the business management arena?
Everything. I mean, the reality is what makes it, and I mentioned this earlier, but what makes a high performing team, really how you come together as a team on the court, on the field. It is so similar to what's going to be next for you in your careers. And of course, there are coaches on the call and they know exactly this. I mean, at the end of the day, we are complex human beings. It's all about dynamics between one another. It's all about the things that we talk about around valuing other people's roles on the team. But like, how does that show up? How does that show up on the court? How do your teammates know that you truly value them? It's easy when it's on the court and it's like, well, you're passing the ball. But how does that show up in the locker room? How does that show up in the classroom? How does that show up for you when you think about, the teams you want to be a part of? And that's where the real intentional work comes in. But I would say it's, the skills, the lessons, the conflict resolution, the things that you are really experiencing as a student athlete. Every part of that is going to be something that you'll be able to think about and really, as you get into your careers, you'll be able to pull from those experiences. And it's, as we all know, not just the winning, right? The losing teaches us critical lessons, and not just the like you win or you win or you learn. I mean, really the lessons of how do you get back up when you've lost a game? How do you get back up when you haven't performed to your top level? How do you deal with conflict with teammates? You may have the same goals, but you don't necessarily have the same operating systems, conflict resolution, things like that. So, I mean, I think that these key lessons you're learning, just like in your everyday real life experiences, are just going to be critical and just incredible value as you become teammates in your careers.
So let's see, Shasta from Cal State San Marcos women's basketball has a question. How were you able to switch over and be successful in the business world when your degree was in journalism? And I think that's something that we talk about a lot with other speakers, is that it's not necessarily always your major, what you majored in is what you have to go into type of thing. So talk to us about that. Yeah,
and on the contrary, I think about, so many people in my circles and in my world, actually their educational background might not be mapped perfectly to a scope of work. So that's why it's really important to be doing things that you're interested in, that you want to learn more about. Not necessarily, sometimes from the beginning, I'm going to be in this lane, I'm studying this, and this is what the career track is. That wasn't the case for me. Loved my journalism degree, loved the opportunity to study journalism. And the truth is, in this particular role, there's a ton of writing. There's a ton of writing involved in what I'm doing, and a ton of kind of PR and things like that. So maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said it was so applicable, but right now I find it to be very. But I think along the way, it's just, again, you're going to have a ton of different opportunities and experiences. You're going to be able to apply some of what your educational background is, and you're going to be able to apply a ton of what you're learning in your sports and with your teams.
And I think one of the things a journalism degree gives you is the skill of communication. And I think communication is, at least that's what I've told my kids, as long as you can communicate, you're going to get a job, because that's the first step. You've got to be able to get through that interview and all that.
Oh, no question. No question. And the communication piece, I mean, it's something I can only imagine you guys talk about it all the time with your teams, how you're communicating, if you're effectively communicating, that's where the team dynamic is so fascinating to me.
Okay, the next question. How's it been being able to see the women's game evolve so much over the years? Incredible.
It's been incredible to watch kind of the growth of the game. And I'd say there's a ton of momentum now. And this is it's a moment in time where I think we really feel that momentum, and we're looking forward to more investment in the women's game, from corporate America all the way through, and excited to see what can happen with the real force and investment in women's sports.
Questions are coming in fast here, Alisha.
Awesome.
So,
Love it.
This is from Kate. What's your best advice for someone whose goal is to end up working for an NBA or WNBA team in any field?
Yeah, I think, the first thing I'd say is kind of pick an organization that you want to be a part of, and then really be open to the different opportunities. As I mentioned, I got into sales. That wasn't necessarily something that was circled for me. Knew it'd be a great point to get into the organization, be a part of the organization. So I was open to it. So I'd say just have some flexibility and openness to the scope of work. Sometimes it maps perfectly with what you're interested in.
I think it's so funny that you took a bite out of both of them.
And sometimes it doesn't.
I know.
I don't think Natasha knew her mic was on, so I just muted her. Okay. Jada?
Can I elaborate off that by any chance? Can I elaborate off that? For me, I want to go into a field where it's going to be very male heavy dominated and all of that kind of sorts. What kind of advice would you give to someone who wants to work in a position like you one day, but face that adversity of the male dominance and this that male pressure?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really powerful right now, and I hope, when you have an opportunity to join the organization you're talking about, or the industry, that there's continued change. But right now, what we're seeing across every single industry, sports, but all the way through, is just the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how important it is for organizations to really focus on that as a core value, and then live that and breathe that and make sure they're hiring against those values. And so my hope would be that that's continuing to evolve quickly, and that there are more opportunities, and the industry that you're speaking about continues to change and to be more diverse. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Let's see, Jada, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. How big is networking and making connections for jobs?
Yeah, this question, I actually love this question, because I think there's such a focus, and you think about social media and you think about all the different platforms to network. And I think it's really, really important. This is what I'd say here. I think it's really, really important to know who your champions are. Who's your squad? Right now, you guys can each think about the people you will go to. If something's going on and you need advice, if you need your foot in the door somewhere, who you want to celebrate with, who is truly cheering for you and rooting for you. These people are going to be your squad. Now, you'll add people along the way, but it isn't about some massive net that you cast. It's about quality relationships. It's about champions. That's who's going to back you. That's who's going to make the phone call to someone to say, hey, you know, you've got to have the conversation with her or with him. You've got to take a shot on hiring this person. It's going to be the people that really, really know you. So build some intentional relationships in the fields you want to be a part of. And then really lean on the squad that's already around you, your champions, because that's who is going to, in the end, really support you. It doesn't mean you don't want to be on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you don't want to go to networking events, but there's something about the real intentional relationships that ultimately, when we pick up the phone and make a reference call, it's those people that, you know, they can speak to your character. They can speak to how you're going to be on a team. So it's not necessarily a huge squad. I actually think it's about a small squad of champions.
It's funny you say that, because our first speaker in this whole series, Jonathan Jones, talked about a canoe and the people you want in your canoe to get you across that river. And it's not a lot of people, but it's the same kind of
Yes.
same kind of a message. Those 4 or 5 people that you can really count on.
I do think it's cool to like reach out to people that you don't know that you would love to do an interview with. I mean, I do a ton of just informational interviews. It's always wonderful to connect with, you know, student athletes or students that are interested in the field. But yeah, I would agree with the canoe.
Okay, Allison says, how did you network? Speaking of all that, within the business and sports industry, you know, you kind of glossed over it, but it was kind of an interesting thing. You said, and then the Seattle Storm called me. That just doesn't happen to most people, I don't think, right? You know, so maybe.
I was doing a quick bio. I'll extend it a little next time if I was too short. So the Seattle Storm called. You know, I had been connected to some degree with the WNBA, but I had a colleague that was at Cal with me, and he had previously been a consultant with the NBA and the WNBA. And there was just some dots connected there, and it was just kind of an informational call. And there was, as I mentioned, this ownership group, some immediate connectedness between the ownership group, myself early on, and so was really excited about it. But yeah, my name made it to some list. And they picked up the phone and called. And the truth is, it was someone that was in my squad that mentioned my name for them to be to consider.
Now, was that a call meant for the GM CEO position, or was that a call, hey, come on and join our organization and we'll put you selling tickets here at the Hawks?
Oh, they were hiring for a president. Yeah, they were hiring for that particular role.
That's quite an honor then to just be called like that.
Yes, it was. I, at the time, was running a team at Cal of development officers. So we were supporting fundraising for the sports at Cal. It was a wonderful, I loved my time in that role. And with that organization, Sandy Barber was the athletic director at the time. She's now the athletic director at Penn State. The leadership there was exceptional. And, really had an incredible opportunity at Cal to do some wonderful work in the administration and just have visibility across all kind of departments there. And was able to just learn a lot, again, from her leadership and the leadership team. So.
And I think you're saying some really important stuff, because you did sales and you did development. So you have that experience kind of across the board, and gives you a view of what other people have to do within your organization. Coach O'Sullivan says, how is the international game of women's basketball evolving, and how is the sports scene worldwide?
For those of you that don't know, many of our players actually play internationally as well. And so, the global landscape of women's basketball is exceptional all year long. And many players in the WNBA, we have a number of international players, but we also have players that play overseas in the off season. So it's certainly a huge part of it. And the game overseas is also tons of momentum and also growing.
Let's see, Nikki, how big is having mentors and how do you find them? It's a great question.
Yeah. I think it kind of starts with that group and asking people that you trust to make connections for you. I do think there is something also to just reaching out to people you want to get to know. So although ultimately you need to have the people that are really your champions, it's absolutely cool to reach out to, somebody in the industry that you look up to or that's inspirational to you and ask if you can get a few minutes of time and try to start building a relationship. But I'd say something that's really critical is just asking people that you trust, that know you, to make connections for you. I mean, absolutely, that's a part of it. And it's something we all do. I mean, we're constantly connecting people, constantly, like really cool people that are winners, that want strong people around them, people that are kind of focused on the work, want to connect other people like that. So, I mean, it's not a hard ask. For me, I love connecting people that I think are gonna, work well together, have aligned mission. That to me is, there's so much joy that comes if you can connect people, and next thing you know, they're working together on some shared mission work. You do have to put yourself out there. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to make the phone calls. You've got to email, do some of the old school stuff, write a note. I mean, who writes notes? I mean, write a note, do something that's a little different.
Let's see. I still want to get back to, you talked about the advantage of being in the WNBA and being able to take on some social issues and things like that. I want to talk a little bit about what you've done, some of the specific things that you guys have done at your place. We also have questions rolling in here, and I know we're short on time. So go ahead and go to that, and then I'll recapture some more questions here on the chat.
Sure. I think one thing that is so inspiring is what the WNBA stands for, and just the bold work that the WNBA has done collectively, the players of the WNBA and the WNBA has done collectively in a fight for social change and social justice. And this last season in 2020, being very bold around anti-racism work. And, the WNBA has led from the front. The players of the WNBA have led from the front. They have, put actions behind words, and it's been powerful to be a part of that. At the Seattle Storm, it's something we're very committed to, and much of our initiatives are player led and then completely backed by the organization. And again, the focus has been historically diversity, equality, equity. Right now, we are very focused on anti-racism work, and will continue to be.
Dominique asks, when you look back on your career, is there anything that you wish you knew or wish that you could have maybe done differently? Or did you do everything perfectly?
Yes, of course. Short answer. I think one thing that, and in the world of sports, I talked about this a little bit, but in the world of sports, losses are going to come, right? I mean, you're truly measured in wins and losses on the court to a degree. So I think what I would say is, as hard as this is, kind of check in and do an audit on what winning looks like to you. Now, this is not easy because everything you see, everything you hear, much of your career is going to be telling you what winning is. Winning looks like this, winners look like this. I mean, we are constantly, there's so much noise. But it's about what winning is to you. That's the only thing that matters. Being in alignment kind of with your values. And I think, it takes some time to really get to a place where, one, and you know how to measure what winning looks like. And two, just the confidence and being comfortable with, yeah, you know what? Maybe someone else would have done it a different way, but this is exactly in alignment with my values and with where I want to spend my time. So this is winning to me, because that's the metric that matters.
So you obviously have found your spot that is winning. You like what you're doing. Coach Leonard wants to know, what's a typical day in your life, in your position?
Well, they're all very unique. I will say that. Right now, I mean, we are gearing up for the draft and then immediately following the season, and we're returning to local markets. So there is a lot of conversation on how we're going to run basketball games in Seattle and kind of execute the whole WNBA season. So right now, most days are focused, very focused on just what the season looks like for all of our stakeholders, our corporate partners, our fans, of course, our players and staff, and we're really focused on the start of the season. There are different cycles for me. I mean, we have heavy kind of planning phases of the business. We have points in time, I mean, throughout the entire year, we're really focused on corporate partners and bringing in more fans and corporate partners. So that's a heavy part of my time. But yeah, every day, you know, I love this part of this aspect of the job is the days are all very unique. But I'm really, really fortunate to have just an exceptional ownership group, an unbelievable front office, and then the team. You know, our team is led by Sue Bird and some exceptional basketball players. And, you know, I'm really lucky to be surrounded by such incredible people, and we're all working towards the same goals.
Not counting the team and the coaches, how big a staff do you have, you know, doing the sales and doing the promotion and the marketing and all that? What does that look like?
Yeah, on the front office side, we're around 30. It fluctuates with the season and with a number of different third-party partners that help us, you know, from an entertainment standpoint and from a game operational standpoint. But we've got a really nice front office size. So corporate partnership, sales, marketing, as you mentioned, communications, public relations, event management.
Awesome. And speaking of that, Daniel has a question. What new or innovative ways are the WNBA looking to use to grow the game further, connect with a wider audience? Are there any particular initiatives that Storm have implemented that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you all saw the recent jersey launch, but Nike really did an exceptional job. And for the 25th anniversary, we've launched a new jersey line. I think getting merchandise, you know, into the fans' hands is really an important part of the reach and the kind of visibility. And then, of course, we're constantly talking about broadcast and just want to make sure that the game is available to everybody that wants to watch the game. So with that, of course, looking at not only broadcast and kind of linear, but also, you know, streaming, apps, second screens. How can we keep our fans kind of engaged? How can we engage on a different level? So, you know, everything from the data piece of it to, as I mentioned, the merch. We want fans that want to be a part of the WNBA to easily be a part of the WNBA.
Zoya, speak up so you get on camera and we can all see you.
Hi, I'm Zoya. I'm at SO State, but I actually just got my Rebel jersey.
What?
I got it because I'm a 19.
Wait, I want to have a reaction. No, that didn't do it. Oh yes, it did. Okay, cool.
On the list, and then also just ordered the dry fit jacket that Nike released today.
Sweet. Well, what do you think?
I love it. I'm like looking at it today. It's very nice.
Oh my God, I love it. That's awesome.
So I've been
well, thank you for your support.
Yeah, Sue Bird has been my favorite player since I got to meet her in 2009.
That's amazing. Well, if you find your way to Seattle, game on me. You are the first jersey I've had on a Zoom. Well done.
Definitely, I'll definitely do that.
Cool.
I think you just sold a bunch more jerseys now because everybody's already on their other computer.
I mean, there's not some collegiate rule on that, but we'll vet that out.
I'm getting free tickets to the game.
We'll vet that out. It's got to be permitted.
Yeah, well, Zoya had tweeted that out earlier, so I'm glad she put it on.
That's awesome. Thanks for the support.
Nina from San Bernardino asks, how important is loyalty and trust when you're hiring, and how do you gauge that?
That is a phenomenal question. And I would say, when I think about the most critical kind of part of a team, trust is the thread. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard of Simon Sinek. You know, he does a ton on team and on leadership. But I was just watching something where he was talking about, you know, the importance of trust even more so than talent. And I thought it was a fascinating segment that I was watching from him. And I just couldn't agree more that ultimately trust is number one. You really want to have talent. You really want to, build your team with people in different areas that they're just experts in and qualified, or they're, up and coming in those areas. But at the end of the day, trust is number one. And if you guys think about how important trust is in your relationships, I mean, where's it rank? If you think about trust, it's hard to believe that it wouldn't be number one. In every relationship you have, trust is what's up. And it's what allows you to kind of get through all the hard times, right? Because with trust, you give someone the benefit of the doubt. And when there's conflict and we're all operating, it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt. But you've got to have a basis of trust. So trustworthiness, and then just trusting people, vulnerability and trusting people is critical.
And I think that's a really good point, in the sense that sometimes you may not agree with somebody's decision, but if you trust that their intentions are, what you want them to be, then you have to accept that a little bit. You won't automatically fight it.
Absolutely. And I think one thing to just, for all of us to keep in mind in these tough moments when there's conflict is that, we judge ourselves based on our intentions and others based on their actions. And if you really think about that in a moment of, you give yourself the benefit of the doubt, gosh, I did not mean to come across that way. She totally took that, or he took that one way, or maybe I overstepped, but my intentions were good. Well, if you give that same benefit of the doubt because you have a strong relationship with somebody and it's like, wow, let's check in here because that did not feel good, but you give them that same benefit of the doubt that you give yourself, it can go a long way in resolving things.
Exactly. Mia, I'm not sure if you're there, if you want to ask your question, because I'm not sure it came out in the chat box exactly the way you want to say it. So if you're there, Mia, and want to ask your question, go for it.
Yeah, so I know you've been in this field for a long time. So my question was, in your position right now, if you would want to pursue it, where would you start into becoming a CEO?
So I just want to make sure, if I was you and wanted to get to a CEO role, what would the track be?
Yeah, if you would to pursue being CEO.
For sure. Okay. I think it's some of the things we've talked about. Get to know the business that you're interested in being a part of. We talked about it earlier, but I had a chance to really see sports, the business of sports at different levels, both men's and women's, at the professional basketball level, at the collegiate level. It was wonderful to be at Chico State, the University of Pacific, and at UC Berkeley, because it just gave me a lot of different kind of windows into sports at all different levels. And so I'd encourage you to join the organization you want to be a part of. Get in where you can get in. There's no substitute for hustle and work and grind and all of those things. But I would just kind of be open to different opportunities along the way. Really, that's kind of the key. And then if this is what you want, then that'll be part of your climb. It's about the people around you as well, and believing in yourself. And we haven't talked about that. And so I just want to take 1 minute on this because it's, I think, so important. You and knowing who you are and being your authentic self. There's just absolutely no greater asset for a team than you showing up and being exactly who you are. I also think it's just the most important thing for us in our journeys to be living kind of our authentic selves, but it's going to make your team stronger. We need originality, diversity. We need people to be exactly who they are. We just do not need one. That's what we're here to kind of change. We need people to show up and be exactly who they are. And it's going to be your competitive advantage. It's going to make you the strongest asset to your team. So just focusing in on that, checking in on who you want to be and how you want to show up to your team. and really what fills you up. Follow your passion.
Thank you. Jaja, who is the assistant coach at Cal Poly Pomona, wanted to ask a question. So Jaja.
Sure.
Thanks, Mitch. First and foremost, thank you, your organization and WNBA as a whole, for being so bold and for taking a stance and like not teeter-tottering, literally just drawing the line and making sure that everyone knows that. Thank you for that. My question is, how do you cultivate that type of culture and empower not only the players, but everyone within your organization to not only show up on game day and exhibit that, but to live that in their lives?
Yeah, and thank you for your words. I think the players are such an inspiration and such leaders to the WNBA, to the different organizations. So from that end, it's just been a wonderful opportunity to listen to the players, amplify their platforms and their voices in the leadership role that they have taken. I think from a specific Seattle Storm standpoint, this ownership really is shaping so much of this, right? Their ideologies, their belief system, and really where they're putting their time and energy and what they're supporting has been just material in our ability to build a culture that is really around our core values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And because of that ownership, we're able to every day, all day, focus on a business model and, showing up in the community and really aligning it with those values. So it starts there. There's no question. The players, the owners, and then a team. I think we make it very clear very early on, and then we talk about exactly who we are and what we want to stand for, and then we protect that. And we just have to, ensure that we're constantly checking in, that our actions are in alignment with our values. Thanks for the question.
Time is winding down, Alisha, and I made you a promise. So I'm going to close it with Danelle, Coach Danelle Bishop. Are you there?
Yep.
There you are.
Hi, Alisha. I'm the head coach at Cal Poly Pomona. Thank you for your time today. I just wanted to ask a question. We have a lot of female athletes on this call today with lots of wonderful questions. Statistics have shown that, women typically get out of athletics. They'll start and get out of athletics. What are some ways that you can encourage and empower these particular women on the call today, to just kind of push forward and be encouraged not to be another statistic?
Yeah, I think let's be part of the solution. And we need to think about our little ones. We need to think about our youth. And you guys all have a wonderful opportunity to, support little girls and little boys as well. What would be amazing is to continue to see women coaching and at all different levels. But I think your question's a great one. And I believe we just all need to step into being part of that solution. Space with sports is a space for women and a space for girls. And I think, we're continuing to see momentum and investment in that. But we can do more, and we can all be a part of the solution. So let's, encourage the next little girl to get in the game and then support her in it. Thank you.
So I hate to end this, but we made a promise, and it's kind of a big night for Alisha. So I want to thank Alisha for joining us today. I certainly hope you enjoyed this talk, and you'll share your thoughts with us. We're going to send a survey out tomorrow, a short survey, and get your feedback. A reminder that next week we're going to conclude this speaker series with another CCAA alum. That's Major League Soccer great Kai Kamara, former Cal State Dominguez Hills Toro. So I appreciate it. Alisha, thank you so much. I appreciate you spending the time. Let's give a big thank you to Alisha for joining us.
I appreciate the time. Thank you
all.
all.
Good luck with the draft.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care all.